Developer Heart Machine was in the news a little while back for having collaborated with Sweet Baby Inc., seemingly having hired the firm. Over on Sweet Baby Inc.'s website, they had said, "We worked on early world building, story structure, and character development for Heart Machine's upcoming game Hyper Light Breaker, which is supposed to be released in 2025. And now they're having money issues, and they're begging gamers to support them on Patreon. In 2016, they released a game called Hyper Light Drifter, and in 2022, this game called Solar Ash, both games having pretty good reviews over on Steam. Now, of course, it's never a good idea to hire Sweet Baby Inc. for anything. This is especially odd though, because as mentioned, they already had some games that were pretty well received. And regardless, they're like, you know what we need to do? We need to hire Sweet Baby Inc. to improve our next game. Really makes you wonder what these people were thinking. Maybe they're hoping to DEI their next game up a little bit, try and secure some ESG funding or something. Alas, it seems like things are not going so well for them, whatever their plan was, because, as mentioned, now they're begging gamers for money. This is a tale as old as time. Okay, not really, but it is a tale that we've heard before. For example, Tales of Kinzera Zhao, where they had worked with Sweet Baby Inc. on their game and then went through layoffs and ultimately closing their games division entirely, at least according to my recollection. Although they're attempting to still say that there's hope for them in the future, they can make a comeback if they can get some more money. You know, if they can turn things around, they'll open their gaming division once again and release this new game that they're kind of talking about. But yeah, it's not a good look. It's looking real bad for those dudes. So now let's return back to the Heart Machine news and take a look at the video that they released talking about this whole Patreon thing that they're launching.
I'm Alex, and I run Heart Machine, and we're here to talk about the Patreon. So, state of the industry, not great right now. Games are the greatest form of expression that humans have ever created. There's a common saying in development that it's a miracle that any games are made at all, let alone good ones.
Really? That's how they're going to start this? It's the industry, guys. It's the industry. Things are just so tough in the industry. There's been other developers in the past who have embraced DEI policies and or hired Sweet Baby Inc., who then went on to have difficulties in their business, perhaps even layoffs. And then they've said similar things like, it's the state of the industry. That's why things are so difficult for us right now. I mean, maybe you shouldn't have embraced the DEI slop. Maybe you shouldn't have hired Sweet Baby Inc. Sure, that might not be like the only issue that they're facing, but in my opinion, it is absolutely a negative factor and a waste of money. On top of their consulting, also likely just going to be making your game worse. There's just a lot of bad reasons to do that. But hey, no accountability here so far. And sure, for the last few years now, the industry has been struggling ever since they've lost that lockdown boom that they had throughout like 2020, 2021, and a little bit of 2022, but that's also when it started to like go downhill. It's really pathetic to put all the blame on the state of the industry and take no accountability for things that they could be doing differently.
And now, it's even more brutal. Over the past 2 years, the industry has rapidly changed, flipped around and turned upside down. Funding for new projects is sparse, even for successful developers. Everything is far more expensive to make. Paths we used to be able to take to create projects no longer exist. You've likely heard about this on some front. It's grim. 30% of all game developers have either been laid off or had their roles significantly reduced or affected over the past year alone. Studios have closed, many have left. And we at Heart Machine are not immune to this, having gone through layoffs in November of this year. Since the old models are not enough, we have to adapt. So we're asking for support to help us to continue to not just survive, but to thrive. To help us prototype and build new projects, to help support us when the state of the industry has made it so much harder to exist. Ever since we got started, back in the Kickstarter days, we've been big on talking directly to our audience. And we think this Patreon is an opportunity for us to do more on this front while also benefiting. There are a few key goals that we have in mind for this Patreon. One, to give a more thorough and deep insight into our own process and what it takes to make games. We'll be sharing exclusive write-ups, videos, concept art, design documents, GIFs, etc. from all of our projects past and present. Two, to share more about the issues in the industry that are driving the state of turmoil, e.g. corporate consolidation, overspending, accelerating costs, and a changing market.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information about that already out. Like, that's not a very good perk, in my opinion. It also sounds like this guy's going to be extremely biased in what he's presenting there. It's also especially interesting because a lot of these issues have been affecting the AAA side of things even more. For example, like the overspending. A lot of these AAA games have been spending so much money on development, it's insane. And these sort of issues largely don't affect the indie side of things quite as much. I'm not saying they're not affected at all, but it isn't quite the same. As I kind of already mentioned, my theory here is that maybe These guys were trying to get some ESG funding, and that didn't work out. That funding never came. Now they're in trouble. Now, hey, gamers, here's a Patreon video. You should consider giving us money on Patreon.
And 3, to reach a bigger audience with more transparency in an otherwise notoriously opaque industry in the hope that we can share and do our part to help others better navigate and survive.
Bro, do you even hear yourself? Like, I'm not trying to be rude here, but like, do you hear yourself? You're asking people to give you money. And you're turning around and saying you want to give people advice on how to survive in the state of the industry right now? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
We all love games. We're here because it's an industry driven by passion, but it's never been easy. And we've been making titles that we're extremely proud of for 10 years now. And we want to make sure we can stick around for another 10. Approaches like this Patreon are part of what it takes to make sure of that, to get through the toughest times and come out ultimately better. We hope that you enjoy the content and inside access that we're providing here. And thank you so much for your support.
I don't know, man. It's hard to feel bad for these people. Like, part of me actually does, but part of me also feels like they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes. Like, something here is not adding up. It just comes off kind of like conniving. It comes off kind of swindly. Once again, if he would have addressed issues at his company, mistakes that they had made, I think it would come off a lot more genuine and sincere. Clearly, some things have gone wrong for them. And you can't just blame everything on the industry as if nothing is your fault at all, and then ask people for money too. Well, I guess you can do that, but to me at least, it doesn't come off well. Of course, you're welcome to agree or disagree with me in the comments. Let me know what you think about his statement, his Patreon post thing. And speaking of the comments, let's take a look at some of the comments on Heart Machine's video, see what people are saying about it. Sorting by top comments, we've got ask modern audience to support you. A company hating its customer base runs into financial problems. Shocking. Don't ask normal people for money. Ask the people who you cater to. And it's wild to me that you are actually asking us to pay for you to make games for us to buy. Dang. Working with Sweet Baby Inc. didn't help my, I think it's supposed to say, like, didn't help much, I guess. But yeah. Oh, they made a follow-up comment, too, saying, I'm not even trying to be mean. Make games that people like without a politically driven agenda, and people will buy them. The next one saying, ran with the wrong crowd, This one saying, you aligned your company with SBI. They openly hate the gamer community. That doesn't follow into their ideology. You didn't want to make projects for the gamer community. You wanted to push an agenda/ideology, or at the minimum partnered with other companies to push one. You made a choice. And finally, we'll take a look at this one that says, take responsibility for your own choices. You didn't research your own market. You can't blame your own choices on others. If people want to buy a blue t-shirt, you don't sell them a yellow one and say it's better. Know your market. Business 101. Ridiculous. Jeez, yeah, that doesn't look like it's going so well. And they actually released that video on December 24th, Christmas Eve. Like, why would a game dev company release a please give us money video on Christmas Eve of all times? Seems especially tone deaf. But hey, let me know what you think about this stuff in the comments. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed my coverage, and if you did, please consider liking and or subscribing. Appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.